The insanity defense, also known as the mental disorder defense, is an affirmative defense by excuse in a criminal case that argues that a defendant is not responsible for their actions due to the effects of a psychiatric disease at the time of the criminal act. The first complete transcript of an insanity trial is dated with the year 1724, with such documents outlining the extent to which juries can acquit those found to be legally declared insane. In criminal law, irresistible impulse is a defense by excuse that calls to question the extent to which arousal should be considered when making judgments about one's sanity and responsibility when it comes to criminality at length.
Hello out there, my name is Christina. Welcome back to this channel. This is the place where we gush about the films that we love and try understanding the ones that we don't. On today's agenda is the 1959 courtroom drama film entitled Anatomy of a Murder. It was directed by Otto Preminger and written by Wendell Mays. Michigan lawyer Paul Beekler takes the case of Army Lieutenant Mannion after he kills a local innkeeper, Quill, after his wife Laura claims to have been raped by him. Beekler parries with District Attorney Lockwood and Prosecutor Claude Dancer to set his client free, but the case rests on the shoulders of the victim's mysterious business partner, Mary, who is hiding a secret. Before analyzing Preminger's work, we are going to need to set the scene, quite literally. In July 1952, a man by the name of Mike Chenoweth was shot and killed by a Coleman Peterson after his wife Charlotte accused the former of rape in Big Bay, Michigan. Peterson was charged and tried for first-degree murder even though Charlotte's claim could not be medically substantiated, and an attorney by the name of John Volker agreed to defend him. The argument presented was that Peterson acted with an irresistible impulse and during a trance-like state that only anger and relative tensions can provoke. Having successfully represented his client despite the concept of insanity posing significant challenges, Volker published a fictionalized account of his experience on this case using an alias, Robert Traver, in 1958. Dramatic resignations aside, as will be pointed out later on, at the root of Anatomy of a Murder is an otherwise unprecedented dedication to truth. Viewers now might not understand its novelty given a modern saturation of stories like A Few Good Men and its well-meaning cohorts being at arm's length at all times. But Anatomy of a Murder introduced the genre of realistic courtroom drama to American readers. The same can be said in terms of a particular aura of priviness in terms of the research that goes into high-profile trials that can be extended to its cinematic successor.
And you, Joseph N. Welsh, who temporarily deserted the real law to play Judge Weaver.
I do. This is highly irregular.
Irregular, John? Didn't you approve the screenplay by Wendell Mays?
Yes?
Didn't you, when I came up here, suggest that we shoot here in this courtroom, and didn't you yourself suggest every single location for the film, including your own house that you were kind enough to lend us?
Well, that's true.
And didn't you, being not only a bestseller novelist, but also a justice of the Supreme Court of Michigan, didn't you supervise every single legal detail in the film?
Yes, Otto, but you don't have a jury.
Oh, that, you see, John, our jury is not just 12 men and women in a box. Our judge and jury sits out there, millions and millions of people in the theaters.
Falling in line with a poetic regard for justice, investment on behalf of Anatomy of a Murder's cast was contingent upon said film's treatment of the due process, namely that of Judge Weaver, who is portrayed by Joseph Welch. Known at the time as the chief counsel during the Army McCarthy trials of 1954, his experience and commentary led to the editing of differing scenes, with special consideration for those that incorporate humor so as to balance the scales between authentic gurgling and expected theatrics. This isn't to suggest that Anatomy of a Murder retains full bragging rights when it comes to both its thoroughness and tonal consistencies, but this is to be expected given the fact its source material is well over 400 pages long, not to mention its presentation to the less knowledgeable masses when it comes to guardianship of the law. such as to blame for its antics that prove buzzworthy or entertaining, like a scene featuring a dog. That definitely did not happen in real life, and its treatment of the necessary formalities given the specific context. Preminger, Volker, and Mays are comfortable letting others laugh given how ludicrously matters of the law can develop, without neglecting or forfeiting the overall seriousness of the situation at hand. All that said, it isn't entirely a coincidence that this feature is lacking a real sense of precedence or perhaps even nuance given Beagler's position. May's omitted scenes meant to ponder on the conflicting nature of insanity-based defenses, which informs the entire investigative procedure, in addition to those that highlight the rarity of the irresistible impulse defense that is entered from the very start. For those curious to know, the last time that kind of defense was used in Michigan was during People v. DeFee in 1886. Here's a fun fact related to authenticity before we move on. Almost the entirety of Anatomy of a Murder was filmed on location, and that includes the one where Chenoweth was killed in real life.
Mr. Paquette, what would you call a man with an insatiable penchant for women?
The what?
A penchant, a desire, a taste, passion.
Well, a ladies' man, I guess. Or maybe just a damn fool.
Just answer the questions, Mr. Paquette. The attorneys will provide the wisecracks.
Well, what else would you call a man like that, Mr. Paquette?
We can't see the drift of this, Your Honor.
You mean you do see, Mr. Ludwig?
You may answer.
Can you think of another name, Mr. Paquette?
Woman chaser.
Try again.
Masher.
Oh, now, come now, Mr. Paquette. Mashers went out with whalebone corsets and hairnets. Did you ever hear the expression wolf?
Well, sure, I heard that. It just slipped my mind.
It slipped your mind. Well, naturally it would, clanking around in there with all those rusty old mashers. Have you ever known a man who you could call a wolf, Mr. Paquette?
I'm not sure.
Was Barney Quill a wolf, Mr. Paquette?
I couldn't say.
Or wouldn't?
For what it's worth, it would turn out that Chenoweth's reputation didn't do him any favors in terms of being retroactively absolved of the crime he allegedly committed before being killed. He was classified as a dirty dog with a rumored history of having assaulted a number of women, though he never stood trial for any such incident. This goes unreferred to in even Volker's fictionalized account, who instead focuses on the dynamics at hand that more immediately answer to scrutiny. Mr. Mannion, who is neither written nor portrayed as one who favors pacification when aggravated, fits the profile of your typical domestic abuser. He is knowingly charismatic and sometimes suspiciously so, and ironically frank on the topic of his delivery of justice, though his judgment obviously proves contentious or debatable. Attempted justification of his actions segues into characterization that is archaic, but calls to question how much the tangibility of Laura's sexuality can be indicative of her responsibility to the overarching situation, consensual or not, I should add, which is accentuated in almost quid pro quo fashion as a source of power or influence in both versions of Anatomy of a Murder. The greatest trick pulled is the successful selling of Beagler's integrity, which is maybe not hard to do given James Stewart's penchant for charisma and his corresponding character's flankering that appeals as a desperation for truth. Hidden amongst his philosophical squabble and well-planted doubts is an opportunity for personal gain, an especially needed one at that given his financial situation, which makes not only his performance potentially a matter of contingency, but speaks to the malleability of court-appointed recumbents when multiple parties stand to benefit from it. On the topic of conciseness, Preminger's adaptation proves better than Volker's source material, though the differences between each exposes much about the power of discretion and this legal procession of showmanship. Only referred to in passing, the original likes of Beagler and the prosecuting attorney have a relationship outside of the courthouse that shapes their behavior. They are political rivals competing for the same political office, but this context isn't needed to extrapolate the significance of bias-turning presentations on a playing field that proves widely open to interpretation.
defense calls Mary Palat to the stand.
Your Honor, we must protest this whole affair. The noble defense attorney rushes out to a secret conference, and now the last-minute witness is being brought dramatically down the aisle. The whole thing has obviously been rigged to unduly excite the jury. It's just another one of Mr. Bigler's cornball tricks.
Moreover, Mary is originally little more than an object of attraction for Beagler, but is turned into a star witness in what is almost true MacGuffin style. What she provides as evidence corroborates much of Laura's testimony, though this evidence remains unfounded in the source material. Whereas her revealed relationship to Mr. Queel would prove scandalous, which reinforces the dominating forces of perspective and stereotyping that Laura is exposed to on the stand, to an audience where the nuclear family was still likely to be the norm. This all in mind, Anatomy of a Murder carries on toying with its audience, employing distraction as a self-referential bid for resolve. With the topic at hand being murder, it quite simply doesn't matter if Laura was assaulted or not. What matters is that her husband believed that she was, and he found it appropriate to take the law in his own hands for one reason or another. These reasons could be indicative of his obligations as a protective husband, or any feelings of possessiveness or jealousy surrounding his wife coming to fruition, or, while not likely, but spitballing, some lack of faith in a judicial system that regularly fails survivors of sexual assault. Furthermore, any sense that could be made is further complicated by the couple's response to a verdict that works out in their favor that could be labeled as ungrateful or unsavory that actually did happen in Volker's case in real life after he successfully defended Peterson. Of course, there is always the possibility that an innocent man was killed in 1952. That depends on who you ask and how much the person you ask thinks they know. All parties involved in the creation of Anatomy of a Murder understand this, and across its various mediums, present differing points of conflict as a show of sympathy for the space between prosecutors and defendants alike. The space really is the meat and potatoes when it comes to arguing matters of the law, with the duty of determining one's innocence deferred to what is sometimes 12 confused or uninvested men. There's much to be said about handling the truth and fumbling with it, and in this context, it's almost inevitable. Laws might tell people how to behave, but interpreting said behavior, that's a whole other ballgame. If you are still watching, thank you so much for your time. As usual, questions, comments, and concerns are encouraged and welcome below, in addition to suggestions as to what movies I should be watching and analyzing next. My name's Christina, take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.